everyone, welcome to a 10-1-10-1 review. If you notice, there's another one in this particular review. So sometimes games in the farming and life sim genre are slow to start, so I figured that it would not be fair to judge these games until I got through a whole year in game at least. So with some games, that year might take less than 10 hours and they are perfect for the 10-1-10 format. But for other games, it might require a little bit more extra time. So that's where the extra one comes in. With that being said, today we are looking at Echoes of the Plum Grove and how I felt after playing the game for 10 minutes, 1 hour, 10 hours, and 1 year in game. As always, this review is subjective to my experience, but it should give you some information on whether you might like this game or if it's not for you. I won't be rating the game on a scale, but we'll definitely talk about what I liked about it and things I wish it did differently and whether or not I'm going to continue playing. So, with that, let's get into the review. Echoes of the Plum Grove is an indie farm and life simulation game made by Unwound Games. It was released on April 29th, 2024, and currently it is retailed for $19.99. You can raise crops and animals, craft and decorate your homestead, forage, socialize and make friends with the island townsfolk, and even build a family, all while battling hunger and illnesses common in the 1700s. In Echoes of the Plum Grove, you are a brave soul who dare to venture across the ocean to start a brand new life in Honeywood. There are a set number of people in your town in the beginning when you land on the island. However, they will change as you progress through the game due to the very randomness nature of it all. For example, some people may contract a disease and die in your first spring in one game, but be completely healthy in another one. Or townsfolk who married each other in one game may not and get married to other people in another game, and their children may look completely different. These random happenstances make your story in Honeywood unique from everyone else's. Beyond that, the game does have a story, and your character will be able to uncover the mysteries of Honeywood as you continue to play the game. I was caught pretty off guard about the storyline, but when I thought about why this game is called Echoes of the Plum Grove, it makes total sense. I won't spoil the story, but it definitely got me hooked once I finally figured out what was going on. In the first 10 minutes that I played Echoes of the Plum Grove, I was able to create my character, be introduced to the story, where I'm moving to Honeywood with my best friend, hold my best friend in sheer terror as our ship sinks in a storm, wake up in the Honeywood Lightkeeper's house, meet the mayor, and get introduced to my homestead. All the while, I was riveted with how beautiful the world looks. I am such a fan of the paper cutout art that they have going on, and I was so excited to start doing things. It really reminded me of Paper Mario, and it just looks so beautiful. During my first hour, I had such a fun time getting to know Honeywood better. My homestead felt big with lots of weeds and debris to clear out for eventual crops and animals, and I was really appreciative that there weren't any specific rocks and trees you couldn't clear without upgrading your tools, like in Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley or such. So you can definitely use the entirety of your field right from the beginning if you just go to the blacksmith and get the tools that can clear it. I did have to buy an axe, but there was no issues chopping down any of the trees once that purchase was made. The townsfolk that I met in their beautifully decorated homes and shops were all unique, and I really loved how the families had certain professions. It just felt like there was so much to do in the game as you're introduced to paying taxes, the quest board, the hunger meter, and how to sell and buy things. After the hour was up, I definitely wanted to keep playing. After 10 hours of the game, I was able to get through an entire month of spring as well as play on a second character just to see if my experience was any different than my first one. I was really surprised that both of my characters lived such different lives. One of them had such a peaceful spring with about three weddings and three funerals, while the other characters, townspeople, basically all contracted smallpox, and I was holding funerals for 8 consecutive days. Most of the characters that have been pretty consistent in one game were gone in the other one. I literally had two orphans running their mother's tavern since most of the adults died out in my second game. Unfortunately, since I was still playing my very peaceful route, at the 10-hour mark, I was feeling like the game was getting a bit repetitive. I spent most of my day fishing and trying to build up money to build a barn and upgrade my house, which was hard because I kept spending money to try to eat, to survive, or buy more materials for crafting. Farming was a little agonizing because you have to water each crop individually, so I didn't do as much of it as I thought I would. Even though you start off in the same way as many other farming games do, in those games, you eventually have the opportunity early on to upgrade your watering can to water more than one crop at a time, such as in Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons, or craft sprinklers like in Stardew Valley to help you out. But in Echoes of the Plum Grove, you are stuck watering each individual plant, and it just takes up a lot of time. At this point, I wasn't sure whether or not the game was for me. However, of course, I wanted to see if my opinion would change after a year in game. After a whole year in game, I can definitely say that I had a great time playing Echoes of the Plum Grove and would probably play at least another year or so. To finish a whole year, I invested 30 hours total into the game, upgraded my house once, got married, had two kids, and raised some chicken and cows. I would say that after I got married in the summer, my boredom was staved off because I was really excited to see what adding children to the game would look like. In this game, you can have two children total, and they can either help you on your farm or be apprenticed to a trade. They can also go to school if you really want them to. So I apprenticed my daughter to the tavern owner and my son to the woodcutter, which was really neat because I had access to their shop inventory whenever I traded with them. I could also collect their earnings if I wanted to, and they would sometimes gift me things if our relationship was high. They really felt like their own special, unique individuals because they also had specific traits that they would develop. For instance, my daughter was a liar, apparently, and my son was a genius. It doesn't really affect how they acted, as far as I know, but it's nice to just have some randomness. Late fall and winter was actually when things started exponentially picking up for me. After the Harvest Festival, most of my town caught smallpox, and I had so many funerals to attend to during winter. Literally, the entire calendar was full of funerals. Winter was also the time when I unlocked more of the story. Once spring came around again, my character had gotten older as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing what succession looks like whenever my character actually passes away. Overall, after a year in game, here's what I liked so far. So, one, the art style is just so unique and beautiful. I love how the houses and the stores are decorated and the general aesthetics of the game. Everyone's house has so much personality in how it looks. I definitely know what the Bailey Farm looks like or the Whitfield Manor. I also love how you can walk behind trees or your crops, and things will be in the foreground to show depth. So, overall, such a beautiful, beautiful game. That being said, the festivals are also such a spectacle to look at. There's not too much that you can do at the festivals themselves, but the game does have a little extra thing that corresponds to the festival, such as being able to give candy to the children during their Halloween kind of festival, or collecting cranberries for the Yuletide punch. Two, you can play how you want and turn off certain settings to achieve your optimal level of coziness. For example, the game has a fishing minigame that you have to do for each catch. It's actually pretty unique since I haven't seen the stealth minigame yet, but it definitely slows everything down. So once you are finally bored of the minigame or you're just not in the mood to play it, you can turn it off if you want. You can also turn off character death or decay of items or illnesses. So it's very, very flexible. 3, I love that you can find the townsfolk who run certain shops and just trade with them, even if they're not in their shop. This makes getting seeds so much easier, so I can just make sure to plant again after I harvest my crops, or even buy tools whenever the ones I'm using happen to break. Lastly, I love the potential for story in the game due to the randomness factor. While I was going to propose to Isabella, I had influenza that day, so I ended up throwing up and having such a difficult time buying a ring and getting to the tavern in my condition. However, it happened, and now I remember the proposal fondly because of how absurd it was. Here are some things that I wish I knew sooner. So, giving the townsfolk gifts to raise their relationship is totally worth it. I didn't concentrate that much on relationships in the beginning, especially after Temperance had me going around insulting everybody and their mothers. But the townsfolk who end up your friends will give you items back in return. Moreover, they'll sometimes give you items that are related to their craft. I've been gifted tools from the blacksmith and furniture from the woodcutter, so it has really been nice. Also, you can get vaccinated for smallpox, and I totally was kicking myself when I caught it because I forgot to get vaccinated. Here are some things that I wish were different. Although I like being able to access the townsfolk's inventory whenever, I also spent a lot of time trying to find them on the map whenever they weren't in their shops. Some of them also had loose definitions of store hours, so they would not be in their shop when they should be. I've spent so many in-game hours trying to find the fisher, for example, whenever my rod broke and she wasn't selling fish at her shack. I'm sure this is for realism or something, but nonetheless still annoying to try to go out and find her. I also wish the mining was a little more than what it is right now. It's a little underwhelming in my opinion, despite how ominous the atmosphere of the mines are. Also, I remember getting the expensive steel pickaxe to open up the mines and just being met with another node. Sure, it was a beautiful, sparkly crystal gem node, but it didn't enhance my experience in the mine all that much. Just another little area that I needed to go to do my daily thing. Lastly, I wish that my spouse, kids, and pets would stop just standing near the door of my house. I had to prioritize upgrading my house because it was really annoying to have to go through them every time I wanted to go outside. When the house got upgraded, luckily they were crowding around the stairs instead. I really would love it if they spread out more in the house or be in different rooms so it feels like they also live there. I know that it's possible because I've seen my son play with some toys on the floor before, so I'm actually not sure if this is a bug or not. Although there was a slog while I was playing, I think that after a whole year in game, I can see myself playing more of Echoes of the Plum Grove to try and resolve the story, and also just to see how the town progresses after my current character passes away. Looking at the townsfolk who ended the year with me compared to the ones that I met in the beginning really makes the in-game time feel like it's progressing and that I've developed relationships with the townsfolk in some way. The game really started slow for me despite the beautiful visuals, and I had a hard time getting through my first spring. However, everyone's experience can be different, and that's definitely a sell for the game. The diseases really add an extra layer of chaos and randomness, as well as the other story related mechanics. Echoes of the Plum Grove is not the most exciting game, but it is a really good slow burn. It does add to the cozy gaming genre, and I love the addition to the family system that goes beyond the typical. Well, there you have it. If you think this game is for you, I hope you give it a try. Until next time, I'm Nessa, and this has been 10110 1.